Welcome to the special edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald Quinn, episode 972, our very first mini pod, remembering the late and great John Amos. Wanted to talk about him last week, but there was a lot going on in terms of Pete Rose dies, Kemi Mutombo dies, and of course the news broke. Like, I think the day that I was recording, the news broke of the podcast. So I just felt compelled to give this John Amos. John Amos deserved his own mini pod. He deserved his own. Need to pay respect. I wasn't just going to squeeze him in, just for the sake of it. So felt compelled to do this. He was obviously played one of the most iconic characters. Father figure characters in the history of television. James Evans, of course, of the great show Good Times. He passed away at the age of 84 of heart failure. He died on August 21st, but of course we didn't find out until last week, middle of last week, and that's a whole another story in itself. But let's talk about the career, the legacy, before we get into the messy stuff in regards to the family. The character James Evans was like, and he had some of the same physical features as my late grandfather, Charles Quentin I. Kind of looked like him in something. They kind of favored, to be perfectly honest with you, and just that this guy. The character he played was a man's man on Good Times. Hard worker, no nonsense, cared about his family, loved his family, wanted the best for his family and his kids, and he fought hard, tooth and nail for roles of that, for a role like that, and it truthfully ended up getting him fired after just 3 seasons on Good Times. He gets fired right before season 4, because he did not like this direction that the show was going in. Too much JJ, not enough Thelma, not enough Michael. Michael dealt both Bernadette Peters and Ralph Carter were highly trained actors of theater. Ralph Carter had won an Emmy for a role he played. So he wanted more, it wasn't just about him saying, hey, I want more stuff for myself. No, he wanted more stuff for the other characters, the 2 other kids. And JJ, similar to Steve Urkel, and what happened with General Wright and Steve Urkel, got popular, got the most applause during with those live tapings. And, the character, more, it became the JJ show in essence. And, a guy like John Amos, who was a classically trained actor in his own right, a guy who was highly intelligent, a guy who, paid the price as an actor, somebody who was a strong-willed black man, wasn't having that shit. Like, he just wasn't like, this guy was not going to sit up here and just be, shucking and jiving or be a part of anything like that. He could have, again, I have so much respect for what he did, standing up for those other 2 characters, because it wasn't not making it about him. It wasn't about him. He wasn't telling Norman Lear, hey, give me the show should be about me. He was like, no, I want this show. This show is too much JJ who was cooning. Let's be honest about that. And more about these other characters in terms of Bernadette Peters and also Ralph Carter. So he deserved, lost his job, was one of the best jobs at the time in television. Like that, he was the father figure off a show that was one of the best shows on television at the time, was getting high ratings, and he was a big part of that. The show was never the same without James Evans. The show, I know they did end up doing, I think 3 more seasons. I think Good Times did 6 seasons. They ended up doing 3 more seasons, but the show was never the same after that. If you look at it, it's like some of the plot lines and stories got, they had a couple of some episodes here and there. I know they had some powerful episodes when Janet Jackson joined as Penny and Winona took, kind of, they, upped her character. gave her more screen time. So they had some moments, but those first 3 seasons, there was nothing like those first 3 seasons of Good Times. And one of the main reasons, of course, was John Amos. And we gotta pay our respects to the John Amoses of the world, the Red Foxes of the world, the Sherman Hensleys of the world. These characters were powerful black characters who went through a lot of shit in terms of those shows that they had. Those shows were iconic shows. Those were powerful characters. Powerful characters. And I don't feel like enough respect is paid to those characters. And, it's something that, John Amos, along with Esther Rolle, fought those writers tooth and nail about how these characters were going to be depicted. They were not for the shit. They were not for the shucking and jiving. They wanted a strong black family with, we all know we watch Good Times. There was always some bad happening, but something bad happened seemingly could get depressing at times. But it was the quality of writing was upped and pushed to the limit because of John Amos and because of the Esther Rolle, for sure. And you look at some of the characters that he played. He plays James Evans in Good Times. He plays the elder Kunta Kinte. He was all over the place. You talk about somebody that worked a lot. He had over 118 credits between film, small screen, streaming. He was all over the place on different cameos, on different shows. Was on, Fresh Prince, on a number of shows, number of movies. Was a fixture on television for well over, basically been a part of 40 years. Plays, Cleo McDowell and Coming to America. I know the second one was garbage, but the first one we really acknowledge the first one. Forget about the second one. That was a paycheck and whatever. At that point, he had the right to got bills to pay, so he had to pay. I didn't have no problem with him reprising that role in 2021. But this guy was for sure a real one, and fought for these characters, fought for black actors, fought for respect. And again, he easily could have just took the check, and he could have just took the check for the next 3 years on Good Times. But he spoke up. It cost him his job, and I certainly respected him for that. Now, as far as what's going on in terms of his death, the delay in terms of when it was announced, so you got a situation where he was being taken care of, or according to some, not taken care of, depending on who you talk to or who you listen to, by Casey, his son, Casey Amos, and apparently there's a major rift within the family between Casey and Shannon. Shannon Amos, his daughter, claims that Casey kept John away from the family, the inner circle, messed up his finances, took advantage of him, was not giving him proper care, was accused him of elder abuse and the whole nine. And now on the flip side, Casey, of course, denies all those claims. John Amos's publicist, Melinda Foster, of 30 years, also claims that, well, those things were not true. She said the reason why Casey did not contact Melinda, the reason why Shannon did not know about John's passing on August 21st was because there was a restraining order that kept Casey from contacting Shannon. So a lot of bullshit going on from that standpoint. That first of all, the ideal is so much going on. First of all, the idea that we're even talking about this is problematic. When family business leaks out in public over the internet, it's never pretty. Then the second part is, and this is something that all of us will have to face. Hopefully, as we get old and live long lives. The idea of depending on somebody to take care of you, and how that could possibly go left without if you're not receiving the proper care and just the treatment of elderly people. This is something that probably is not talked about enough. Just the dependency that that elderly people have on their children, and it can again, you would like to think that there's proper care, that the children are taking good care of their parents. Well, that's not always the case. It's not. We know that's not always the case. And again, we don't know what was going on behind the scenes with Casey Amos and John Amos and Shannon Amos, but this stuff can get ugly, and this stuff can get ugly fast. And again, we don't know we don't know the truth. The only people that know is John Amos, God, and Casey and Casey Amos, possibly Casey and Shannon Amos. We don't know. There's a lot of he said versus she said. Apparently Casey and John Amos were working on a documentary that's going to come out about John's life as a father. John Amos says, claimed that the truth will come out. Belinda Foster, the publicist, claims that John wanted the announcement of his death to be delayed. So again, according to the publicist, we don't know how true is that. But that's what the publicist of 30 years says. Again, ugly situation. This is something that we should not be talking about. I mean, we should not be talking about. We should be just honoring this guy's memory as an iconic acting figure during his time, and everything and the doors that he opened for actors and actresses to play high quality roles. So that's what we should be focusing on. But unfortunately, this is a part of it. This part of the story his story can't be told without this part of the story. But as far as John Amos, again, we're talking about a guy who, again, was respected by many within the acting world, within the television world. Again, had a long career and was someone who, again, was adamant about the types of roles that he played. You look early on in his career, his first, let's say 15 to 20 to 30 years of his career, he was not just playing anything just to play anything. He was not just in anything. Like, he played strong characters, in Roots. He's in the Mary Tyler Moore Show. He's in again, in Good Times. He was in another, Shaka Zulu. So he's playing strong characters. He was seemingly a man of principle, seemingly somebody who deeply cared about the craft, of acting. This guy was a serious actor. He was a serious actor. So it's how this is played out is definitely it's definitely unfortunate. But sometimes these things happen. Sometimes this is how it goes down with some of these situations where there are multiple siblings, and what have you. But this was a guy who was a major part of the culture during the time that Good Times was on, and especially as a fatherly figure. Again, like I said earlier, we need to pay homage to the likes of a John Amos, Esther Rolle, Sherman Hensley, and Red Fox. Those guys, those actors, those actors paid near and dear prices for a lot of people to come after them, and a lot of people got paid or are still getting paid because of some of those actors and the doors that they opened. So rest in peace to the late great John Amos. This is the Real Deal Podcast mini pod. I will see you next time. Enjoy your weekend.